Hi, I'm Carrie Kirkham with K&O Wine Merchants, and with me today is Lorenzo Pasquini of Château Yquem. He is a winemaker. He leads the winemaking team at Château Yquem, and we're going to go over the fantastic 2020 vintage. So please tell me about this vintage.
2020 is a vintage that represents very much how we like a young vintage of Yquem to show, because it has a wonderful delicacy and therefore a very nice drinkability. People tend to think that our wines need to be aged 20 years before you can drink them, because otherwise it would be almost disrespectful. But actually in the last 10 years we've been trying to protect as much as possible the fruit. The primary fruit, the fruit that you have in the first stages of the life of our wine. And so 20, as I said, is a nice example, because you have this delicacy in the palate that makes the wine very drinkable, very enjoyable today. And this nice, I like to call it crystalline character in the aromas, with these aromas of fresh apricot, white peach, pear, white flowers that make the wine so joyful also today.
It is really fantastic on the nose, a beautiful symphony of all of the things that you mentioned. So tell me a little bit about how the process of winemaking has changed at Château Yquem, like using spontaneous yeast fermentations, and what does that do for the wine?
Yeah, now let's say that nothing has changed, but over time we try to improve in order to be every year as respectful as possible of the integrity of the wine. And so over time we have been able to use only spontaneous yeast in order to wait for the fermentation to stop naturally. You know that very important thing when you make sweet wines is how to stop the fermentation, and so leave some residual sugar that give the sweetness to the wine. So by using only spontaneous yeast, we're able to wait for this process to happen naturally, and so that preserves, of course, the integrity of the wine and of what we call the fruit, the expression of the fruit. And then also we've been reducing a little bit the length of aging and do less rackings. So rackings is when you take out the wine from one barrel and you put it in another clean barrel. We do that a little less now, and this gave us the opportunity to there also preserve as much as possible the freshness and the integrity of the wine. And that's why in the last 10 years, this has been a very long process. The wine has gained in purity and in clarity in its youth, and that's why the 2020 is a nice example of all this process.
I find that interesting, using natural yeast, because the wine is manipulated less, and so therefore you preserve very subtle phenolics, the delicate phenolics that you would maybe lose in an impeller or in racking, or also in cooling a wine too quickly.
Absolutely.
With glycol jackets and trying to arrest with too much SO2. You know? So it's less manipulated. It's naturally made.
Yes, absolutely. Then all the yeasts are natural. The difference is between the selected yeast and the indigenous yeast that are already present on the juice. Our decision to go for the native yeast that are present in the juice goes exactly in what you just said. So preserve the integrity of the fruit. But all the yeasts are natural, also those that are selected.
Right. No, but if it's a natural yeast, it's just specifically for this, and it'll specifically do a great job. It'll fit.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so what is the breakdown of the type of grapes?
This is 70% Sémillon, which is the most important variety at Yquem, and 30% Sauvignon Blanc, which is also an important variety because it brings the aromatic freshness and the aromatic complexity.
And that's one thing that's interesting, is you can enjoy this young. You're not a baby killer if you open it up early and enjoy it. You mentioned having it with Wagyu beef or roast chicken or even tuna tartare. Can you imagine like the savory applications?
Yeah. Absolutely. So one thing that people often don't know is how versatile are these wines. I completely agree with the fact that you can enjoy these wines when they are young. You're not a baby killer. I completely agree with that. Even though these wines have an incredible longevity, they can live for 100 years. They're also very nice to drink today because they have this fresh and fruity and joyful expression. And for their versatility in the pairing, because as you said, these wines can be paired with white meat. Roasted chicken and Sauternes is probably the most typical thing that we do in Sauternes. With duck breast, it works very well, of course with foie gras, with blue cheese or just with cheese in general. I had some wonderful experience these days with Wagyu beef with some spices, with tuna tartare with spices, with toro tuna with this nice fat that toro tuna has and that the wines cut through.
Anchimo, this would be great with anchimo.
Oysters works very well. These wines have plenty of possibility. We like to say that Yquem is a world of complexity, and also in the pairings there are plenty of things that you can do, and it's much more diverse and complex than what sometimes people tend to think.
And that's one thing I found fascinating, is because a lot of people consider Château Yquem, oh, it's a dessert wine, oh, it's a cheese wine, it's something you have at the end of a course, but it has savory applications as well,
Absolutely.
savory pairings, which makes it so versatile.
Yeah.
And I have to say the nose on this is like an aromatherapy, a beautiful symphony of aromas,
Thanks.
so complex.
We like to say that our purpose is to make a wine that it's a moment of eternity. So a moment that you will remember for your whole life. And this is certainly thanks to this aromatic complexity that for us is our first focus. And so I'm glad that you see it like this, because it pays tribute to all the work that all the people at the Château, in the cellar and in the vineyards, try to do every day.
Oh, and speaking of work, you're now certified organic.
We are. So we started the certification in 2020 and we finished in 2022. It takes 3 vintages to have it, and so we successfully made it in 2022. So 2022 will be the first certified organic vintage for Château d'Yquem. But I am also always proud to say that this was not a revolution for Yquem. Yquem has always been very respectful of its place in terms of environment and people. And the organic certification is one further step in this long history of respect of the place.
That is absolutely wonderful, and I want to wrap this up with on a sweet note and talk about the residual sugar.
Yeah.
The residual sugar on this vintage is a little lower than others.
It is because the conditions of the vintage didn't give us the time to wait for the huge concentration, so we had to be very reactive, very precise, and the result of all this is this delicacy, which is also transcribed in this low level of sugar. It has 135 grams per liter of sugar, which is not very high for the average at Yquem, but we love it like that because the wine is so delicate and so enjoyable, right?
Absolutely. Delicate, balanced, elegant. That really defines the 2020 vintage, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And also, when you mention RS, just to give our viewers an idea of range of residual sugar in Château Yquem, you said 150 was on the high point and 135 was on the low point?
On the low, exactly. So
range.
the average would be 130, 145, more or less. And so indeed, 130, 35 is on the lower and 150 is on the higher.
Fantastic. Well, I want to thank you for your time. This is absolutely
It's my pleasure.
a success. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
I'm actually going to finish this off camera. And if you want to check out the Château Yquem website, I'll put it up on the bottom. And also with K&L Wine Merchants, if you like our videos, please click like and subscribe so you can stay tuned with what we're up to. And to that I say santé.
Cheers.
Thank you. Cheers.
Thank you. Thank you.